Nice kind of talk, Jake, coming at you with just a little bit of instant reaction to today's two outgoings of Tiernan Brooks and Kyle Cameron. I'm unfortunately not here to model the new home shirt as I've not had it delivered yet, so you're going to have to deal with me in the promotion winning home shirt. But I must admit, I'm a massive fan of the new home shirt. I know it's divided quite a bit of opinion online, but no, I must say, when I saw it, I thought, yep, that's spot on. And it looks really good in person as well. I've seen it on somebody else. And yeah, I can't wait to get my hands on it and try it on. But going back to today's quite busy activity of Tiernan Brooks to Gateshead and Kyle Cameron to St Johnstone. So I'll just sort of cover both players individually and just give sort of like a brief overview of my opinions on the moves, etc. So I'll start with Tiernan Brooks, who's gone to Gateshead for a fee. I think that's Transfer Market has it down at about 50,000. Well, I'm not particularly sure how accurate that is, but apparently it was favourable to both Notts and Gateshead. So, it pretty much, if it was favourable, it was favourable, and obviously the lad must have wanted to get the move sorted. And I don't think I can really blame him. He's always played sort of that second and third choice role goalkeeper through his time at Notts. Joined us through that youth academy system. Has been with us for 7 years, which feels like a long time, but he does feel like he has been here for an eternity, really. All that when we came down to the National League from League Two, all the years in the National League, and then to be promoted, that must be a really good cycle for him. To see us come down to then go back up, etc. I think for this season again, he was always going to be either second or third choice. I think it's very clear that Bass is going to be our number one next season. Depending on what happens with Stone, and then obviously we have Slocum. So again, I expect one of them to be our number two, with then Brooks obviously again being third choice goalkeeper. And he's 22 now, so sort of getting into that prime of his career. And he's only made 4 appearances for us, and that's with including a couple of loans out to Rochdale and Cork. So realistically, I think he's only had about 20 odd plus professional first team games. So I think it's probably right that this move happens for him. I'm assuming he's going to be first choice at Gateshead. I'm not particularly aware of their goalkeeping situation, but I think a whole season of first team football for him would do him wonders, and I suspect that's probably what he wants and probably what he needs in that. So yeah, fair credit to him, and I think there's been a lot of positive reaction to the news. It's probably the right choice for everybody involved. But it's a product of the youth system that we've sort of got through and sold on. Might be for a nominal fee, but if we're sort of working with that model still. I'm trying to think back to sort of memorable games that he's played with us, and I think back to the 1-1 against Bromley into the promotion season when he saved the penalty, so it was probably really high on the euphoria, and then it's sort of later on just conceded a penalty and then didn't save that one, so we drew that game 1-1. But I thought it's sort of the first sort of like memorable game that it takes me back to in terms of him, and I think being a product of the youth system, etc. I think a lot of people always had a lot of time for him and always wanted him to do well. And I think people always wish him the best going to Gateshead, and I hope it really works out for him. And then we also have the slightly more interesting one of Kyle Cameron going on a season-long loan to St Johnstone, who play in the Scottish Premiership. So Kyle came to us from Torquay back in 2021 after we lost them in the playoff semi-finals that year, sort of just coming out of that COVID period. Instantly was made captain. I think it was from Michael Doyle. I could be wrong on that, but I think he was made captain from Doyle. And then has proceeded to obviously be with us for the last 3 years, making 122 appearances, which is a significant amount of appearances. I struggle to think back to games when he's either come on as a sub or just simply not started. He's been an absolute staple for us in that sort of left-hand side central midfield role for his past 3 years. It seems like it's been forever. Obviously, I made the video to do with Kyle Cameron relinquishing the captaincy to Macaulay Langstaff, and obviously there was some initial thoughts behind that he won't be first choice this season, given we've signed Bordeaux, Platt, McDonald coming in their central midfield role, sort of a refresh of that back line that we'd all very much rather forget about from last year, with the amount of goals they conceded. But it did sort of set the ball in motion that perhaps he wouldn't be playing as much first team football. And I think quite clearly he wants to play first team football, so has decided, that he wants to go out somewhere. And obviously, it's been a loan to St Johnstone, so I assume that we're not going to see him back in a Notts shirt, given his contract expires the end of 2025 anyway. So it's probably a good deal again. He gets first team football at St Johnstone, comes off the wage bill, and then obviously he'll just be released at the end of his contract next year. Which is, I don't know whether to say it's a sour note or not, given that he was the captain that led us to Wembley, and the point towards the Notts fans when we had the penalties towards our end was incredible. And he did come across as, especially in the National League winning season, as a very good leader and a very good captain. And he lifted the trophy at Wembley for us, which is unforgettable. Not many people can say they've done that as Notts captain. So he fits into the very small group there. And I think he's also had some very other memorable goals. I think Wrexham away when we lost 3-2. Won't go into the details of that one, but his header, I think, is quite underlooked of what else went on in that game. I think it was an incredible diving header that really got us back onto level terms. I know it was overshadowed by other things, but that was unbelievable. He just came out of nowhere with it, really. And he has scored some good goals this season. I remember the MK Dons away game. It was a cracking shot. But clearly wants first team football, wants to play, and I've just briefly seen his statement that he released, and obviously it sort of gives across a little bit of a mixed message, but I think generally he does love the club, and obviously he clearly wants to, but just wants to be playing first team football instead, which is, can you fault him, really? So yeah, there's just sort of my ramblings about both of today's outgoings. I think both are perfectly fine. There's no major panic with either of them. I don't think there's any need to keep Cameron on as a second choice for this season, especially if he didn't want to be that way, and you might not be putting in the effort to be that second choice or third choice centre back position. But yeah, so just kind of lost my train of thought for a second there. So yeah, that's sort of, I think that's my thoughts and feelings towards that. So yeah, pre-season's coming up next week, so very excited about that. Looking forward to getting out and about. Hopefully going to get to see them at Boston. So yeah, you Pies.